It's been nearly 5 weeks since the Federal CARES Act had been signed into law by President Trump, and it expanded unemployment benefits for gig workers, freelancers, independent contractors, and self-employed who normally don't receive unemployment benefits. And states have been struggling to try to keep up with their unemployment claims as well as paying out. And even some states are now saying they don't have any money to be able to pay out and may need another bailout from the government. While all this is going on, several gig workers who have applied aren't seeing any benefits come in. Now, what are we all to do? Hey everyone, Chris here from Real Rideshare Stories. If you're new to the channel and you're looking for different things within the rideshare industry, whether it's updates to what's going on, news, information and tips for passengers and drivers, or what happens on real rideshare rides, start now by hitting that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications. Also make sure to check the description below for other helpful information and tips. Now let's face it, if you are a gig worker, if you're self-employed, independent contractor, or freelancer, it has been a nightmare to get this unemployment. Several people have not been driving for about 5 or so weeks, and that means their payments and their pay has not been coming in. And unfortunately, bills are still coming in and people are having a harder time trying to make ends meet, pay their bills, and even put food on the table. It's become a real epidemic on that aspect as well, too, shutting down this entire economy. Now, as more states are coming online and being able to process any of the gig workers, freelancers, independent contractors, and self-employed unemployment claims, they are also having to deal with the backlog of regular W-2 unemployment processed applications. So several of those applications are still unprocessed and needing to go through the system. So it may take even longer. Some states are just starting to come on and saying there could be another up to 3 weeks for their application to process, which means you're going from 5 weeks of possibly having no pay to up to 8 weeks or maybe even longer. So let's start off with this article where they're talking about unemployment benefits are now open to gig workers, self-employed people, and this is coming from California. So California now has everything in place where you can apply. And like I said, more and more states are coming online, but this is what it's looking like where states are starting. So workers in the gig economy and self-employed people left without income during the coronavirus pandemic will finally have a chance to apply for unemployment insurance through the new state program. So PUA is the best way for independent workers to help get during this economic shutdown. Applications finally open today, Tuesday, April 28th, and recipients can get up to 39 weeks of benefits. So the payments are going to include $167 each week from the state plus $600 from the federal. So that will end up being $767 in total, and that will be for weeks between March 29th and July 25th. So if you are a business owner, self-employed, independent contractor, or gig worker, you can now claim in certain states. So again, it's been taking about a month for them just to process the site and get everything updated to be able to just take in applications. Now let's check out another article with drivers who have gone weeks without unemployment checks. And again, this person that they're talking about in this story isn't alone. There's several out there. And if you're a person who's still waiting, comment below, let me know. Let me know how long it's been since you've driven or had a paycheck come in Pell City, St. Clair County. Stephen Lowerly drives for Uber and Lyft. He used to handle as many as 200 rides a week, so he's a full-time driver. He took passengers to and from the airport, restaurants, bars, and concerts, but because of COVID, everything is dried up. And this is his 5th week waiting for an unemployment check, and he needs that money. So just paying bills, paying car payments and insurance, keeping the lights on at the house, and a few groceries, it's been drying up all of his funds. Rideshare drivers can qualify for unemployment insurance through the CARES Act, which we've talked about and are right now. And Alabama Department of Labor said there was a 21-day wait time for the unemployment benefits even before the pandemic started. So current delays are due to the overwhelming volume of claims. And again, this is in Alabama. So a spokesperson said for the agency, they received more than 350,000 claims in 4 weeks compared to 130,000 claims for all of last year. So you can see in 4 weeks, they've expanded even more than what they've had to deal with by double than the previous year, by much more than double. Now let's head to Florida, where there is another issue happening where they say after waiting for unemployment benefits, 260,000 Floridians find out they didn't qualify. And just to clarify before I go on to this article, it does not mean 260,000 gig workers. It just means that 260,000 Floridians. So anybody who's applied may have been in that number. So yes, some gig workers may be in that number, but not all. And this isn't just gig workers or just self-employed or anything like that. So it says more than 800,000 people across the state have filed for unemployment in the midst of this whole pandemic, and many continue to tell stories about not getting unemployment checks after weeks of going through an online process. Andrew Carswell is a single father of 3 who up until 5 weeks ago was a restaurant server for the past 6 years. So again, like I said, this is just talking about 260,000 people in the state of Florida, not necessarily talking about gig workers themselves. So he hasn't gotten a paycheck and haven't received any tips, have 88 cents in the bank account right now. And he's not alone. There's many people like this. So they're talking about how the newsroom was bombarded with emails and calls from people who said they haven't received an unemployment check. Hundreds of thousands of residents like Carswell learned Monday they are not eligible and not given a reason why. So they don't understand what's going on. Even Governor Ron DeSantis admitted the state's unemployment system has major problems. It was designed with all these different things to basically fail. So during a briefing, he said about 500,000 Floridians would receive checks Monday, saying if you had a job and lost it, obviously you're eligible. So there are some major problems happening there in Florida. Some people are also creating a fundraiser page to try to help out with it. And again, according to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, more than 260,000 Floridians, or 40% of the claims processed, were deemed ineligible. And then they also have a dashboard, which is pretty nice to see what it looks like. So they've had 1.9 million claims submitted. Confirmed unique claims submitted is 824,000. They've got a claim verification queue of 160,000, claims processed 664,000, claimants paid 392,000, and $500 million have been paid into claimants. So you can see what it's looking like for something like the state of Florida as well. And now on to another article, and this is coming from my lovely state of New York, where New York is needing a federal loan to pay for the state unemployment benefits. And if you do a quick Google search, Andrew Cuomo, who is the governor, came out and said at a press conference the other day that unemployment is drying up and they may not be able to pay out unemployment claims. And that is a major problem, especially for the largest state, the biggest state with the epicenter being New York City and this entire state. So New York has to borrow money from the federal government to pay its state unemployment benefits after more than 1 million newly jobless residents filed claims amid this pandemic. That's why the federal government has to provide funding because we don't have the money, Cuomo said in a press briefing. However, New Yorkers are not in danger of losing their benefits. The state is responsible for paying its share of weekly payments, which lasts up to 26 weeks and can turn to the federal government for loans if the unemployment trust fund runs out. The state has applied and is guaranteed to receive $4 billion interest-free loan from the federal government, officials said. It operates like a line of credit, so the state can draw down as needed. They've processed 1.4 million initial unemployment applications and paid out $3.1 billion since March 9th, including the $600 federally funded weekly boost that Congress approved last month as the relief package. So New York is one of the states that is paying out its $600 pandemic unemployment assistance when it comes to the CARES Act, but some gig workers' applications are still being processed. Just saying. So Cuomo also highlighted that the state is running a budget deficit between 10 billion and 15 billion, due largely to the outbreak, the walloping state tax revenue. Cuomo, along with other governors, asked Congress to provide more federal aid to state governments. And so Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said last week that Republicans are not interested in revenue replacement for state governments or solving their pension problems. Instead, he suggested allowing states to declare bankruptcy. Democratic congressional leaders, however, said that they will press ahead with yet another relief package that includes funding for state and local governments. So they are in the process of looking at another stimulus package, which we pretty much knew was going to happen. And they may be actually talking about more checks coming to Americans. The virus upends the national economy. So New York State is not the only one in this situation, nor is the first time states had to turn to the federal government during an economic downturn. California has also been proved to borrow from the federal government to pay its state benefits for the EDD, said last week. So California is in this exact same boat. It processed more than 3.2 million claims and paid out more than $3 billion over 6 weeks, ending in April 18th, including that $600 federal enhancement. And that, again, as California has just started allowing Uber and Lyft drivers to file claims today, this is the number, what they're talking about from last week, April 18th. So they've processed quite a bit already. So 6 states, including California, New York, Texas, Ohio, can only fund up to 10 weeks of benefits before they'll have to turn to the federal government or other sources for infusions, according to estimates earlier this month from the Tax Foundation. And again, this is from a few weeks ago, so those numbers have dropped. Texas said it may have to request a loan by mid-May, while Ohio said its trust fund could last as long as 8 weeks. Many states have been shortchanging their unemployment insurance trust funds for years, in part because they've been reluctant to raise taxes on businesses. And then also 10 states cut their duration of unemployment programs to as little as 12 weeks to reduce future obligations, and 3 of those states returned to 26 weeks during the pandemic. Now, all 4 of those articles will be in the description below, so if you want to check them out, you absolutely can and read them more in full. Also, if you want to do a search with your state, make sure you do a Google search and figure it out, as well as check where and what your state's labor department says when it comes to trying to file for unemployment, and just kind of pay attention to the news. Now, there are a few things that you can try to do to help soften the economic blow and burden that most people are facing, especially if you're waiting for unemployment to come in and it still hasn't yet, and you see your bank account dwindling to lower and lower and lower. Some of the things that you can do is any of your bills or any of your bill holders, contact them, let them know what's going on. See if you can get deferred payments or a payment plan set up down the road when things are starting to work. Most places are going to be very understanding about that. Most places may have already even changed a lot of their policies around to be able to help people with that. So that is one thing that you can try to do where it comes to paying your bills. But if you still see your bank account going lower and lower because you're trying to put food on the table and things like that, parts of the gig economy are thriving, and that is delivery services, courier services, and shopping. Although they have all seen their own problems when it comes to maybe too many people or bots stealing either batches or shifts or whatever it might be, depending on what service you're using. So just be aware of those things, but also come up with a financial plan that you know how much you need or expect to spend, and see how you can come up with that money. You know, learning something or going and getting a job, whether it is part-time or something just to help soften that economic blow where you're able to get some money coming in and still be able to put food on the table and things like that, can go a long way. Also, make sure to check your state's unemployment office. So if you do need to still collect unemployment at that time because you're not at the right threshold of the amount of money that you've been making, or your bills are piling up or anything like that, then see what that is. But those are a few things that you can do. Also, comment below for some other ideas for people if they do need to be able to try to get out there and make some extra money if they have to. So you may have to make a decision on what to do to try to do that. If you can wait it out and you can't go out or anything like that, and you've been affected that way, then I understand that. But if you're able to go out and do certain things, then you might want to look at doing that. But again, it's a decision that you have to make, and you have to make that alone, or talk with your family, depending on what the situation is and what's going on. That's the end of this video. Again, it's been very difficult for people to get unemployment claims when it comes to being a self-employed, a freelancer, independent contractor, or a gig worker. So you're not alone. Try to hang in there. I hope you the best. Anytime there is any update when it comes to unemployment or anything like that, I will create another update video for you. But again, most states are starting to come online. You're able to apply. So just make sure to check your state's unemployment website and follow the instructions on there as to if you can apply yet, or when, or how to apply when it comes to the actual application process. And again, just hang in there. Now make sure to subscribe and ring the bell for notifications so you'll be notified every time a new video is uploaded. And also make sure to check the description below for other helpful information and tips. And as always, never drink and drive. Always tip your drivers, your delivery drivers, and your shoppers. And we'll see you next time.